The morning she arrived at my door, the whole sky looked too bright for someone carrying that much heartbreak. I opened the door expecting the delivery man, but instead, I found my ex-wife's younger sister standing on my porch with a broken suitcase beside her, rain-damp hair clinging to her cheeks, and eyes that looked like they had not slept for days. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The last time I had seen Maricel Vane, she had been laughing at a family dinner, wearing an engagement ring that flashed like a promise. Now that ring was gone, and her voice trembled as she looked at me and said, "I have nowhere left to go." Before this story continues, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the quiet miracles that happen when someone opens a door instead of turning away, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Lifeline Diaries. Your support helps stories like this reach hearts that may need them the most. I stood frozen in the doorway, my hand still on the knob, feeling the past rush back like a cold wind. Maricel was not just anyone. She was the sister of my ex-wife, Celine, the woman I had once promised forever to before forever cracked under pride, silence, and the kind of pain two people create when they stop listening. 3 years had passed since the divorce, but in that moment, seeing Maricel standing there in the daylight with red eyes and shaking hands, it felt like the old world had walked back to my front step asking for shelter. My name is Callum Reed, and by then I had built a quiet life for myself in a small town where mornings smelled of coffee, wet grass, and fresh bread from the bakery down the street. I worked as a furniture restorer, repairing broken chairs, scratched tables, and old cabinets people thought were too damaged to save. Maybe that was why I could not close the door on her. I had spent years learning that broken things were not useless. Sometimes they only needed patience, steady hands, and someone willing to believe the damage was not the end of the story. I let Maricel in without asking too many questions. She stepped into the living room like someone entering a place she was not sure she deserved to stand in. The sunlight came through the curtains and fell across the floorboards, touching her suitcase, her pale hands, the small tear in the sleeve of her coat. She kept apologizing, saying she would leave soon, saying she knew it was wrong to come, saying she had tried everyone else first. I made tea because I did not know what else to do with the storm in her face. She told me everything in slow pieces, each one heavier than the last. Her engagement to Everett had collapsed 2 days before the wedding. Not because of one argument, not because of cold feet, but because she had discovered the life he had promised her was built on lies. Money borrowed in her name. Messages to another woman. A family that blamed her for embarrassing them when she finally walked away. When she returned to her mother's house, Celine was there too, and instead of comfort, Maricel found judgment. They told her she should have stayed quiet until after the wedding, that she had ruined everything, that she had always been too emotional, too difficult, too ready to run. I listened without interrupting, but my heart tightened when Celine's name entered the room. I had no anger left for my ex-wife, only the tired ache of unfinished things. Our marriage had ended after a year of trying to win arguments instead of saving love. We had both made mistakes, but her family had always believed I was the villain. To them, I was the man who failed their daughter. To Maricel, I had once been the quiet brother-in-law who fixed broken cabinet doors at Sunday dinners and left early when conversations turned sharp. By noon, the rain had stopped, and sunlight spread across the town in golden strips. I offered Maricel the guest room for a few days. She refused at first, then cried so suddenly that the sound seemed to surprise even her. She covered her face with both hands, and I turned away, giving her the dignity of not being watched while she fell apart. That was the first small change between us. I did not try to rescue her. I simply gave her space to breathe. The days that followed were careful and strange. We moved around each other like people walking through a house full of old glass. I made breakfast, she washed the dishes. I worked in the garage restoring an old oak dining table, and she sat on the back steps with a notebook, sometimes writing, sometimes staring at the garden as if waiting for herself to return. Everything happened in daylight. Mornings became softer. Afternoons became quieter. Slowly, the house stopped feeling like a shelter and started feeling like a place where pain could loosen its grip, but peace never arrives without testing the door. On the fourth day, Celine called me. I recognized the number and almost did not answer. Her voice was sharp with worry disguised as anger. She asked if Maricel was with me. I told her yes. Silence followed, thick and dangerous. Then Celine said I had no right to involve myself in her family again. I looked through the kitchen window where Maricel was hanging towels in the sun, her sleeves rolled up, her face calm for the first time since she arrived. I told Celine that her sister was safe, and that was all that mattered. She hung up without saying goodbye. After that call, the quiet in the house changed. Maricel knew. She always knew more than people said. That afternoon, while we sanded the old dining table together, she admitted she had been afraid I would send her away because of Celine. Her voice was low, almost ashamed, as if needing help was a crime. I told her that whatever happened between me and her sister did not erase her right to be treated with kindness. She looked at me then with an expression I could not read, something between gratitude and grief. As the week passed, the town began to notice her. Mrs. Alder from the bakery asked if she was family. The postman gave me a curious look. A neighbor saw Maricel laughing in the garden one bright afternoon and smiled in a way that made me uncomfortable. I knew how stories began in small towns. A woman comes to a divorced man's house with a suitcase, and suddenly strangers become authors. I warned Maricel gently, not because I cared what people said about me, but because I did not want her name wounded again. She listened, then said she had spent her whole life obeying people who still judged her anyway. That sentence stayed with me. One morning, I found her in the garage touching the half-restored dining table. The wood had been scratched deeply when it came to me, almost ruined by years of neglect. Now, after days of sanding and oiling, its grain had started to glow again. Maricel traced the surface with her fingertips and said it looked like something that had survived more than people could see. I told her most things do. She smiled, but there were tears in her eyes. It would be easy to say I began falling for her then, but real feelings do not arrive like thunder in stories that are true. They arrive quietly, hidden inside ordinary moments. The way she left coffee ready before I woke. The way she laughed at my terrible radio singing. The way she apologized less as the days went on. The way the house felt warmer when she was in it. And yet every time I felt that warmth, guilt followed. She was Celine's sister. She was wounded. I was older, divorced, and tied to a painful chapter of her family. I reminded myself again and again that kindness should never become a debt someone feels forced to repay. So I kept boundaries. I gave her space. I helped her update her resume. I drove her into town in the afternoons to apply for work. She found a part-time job at a small art supply shop, where sunlight filled the front windows and children came in after school to buy colored pencils. Slowly, she began standing straighter. She bought herself a yellow scarf from a thrift store and wore it like a small flag of survival. She stopped checking her phone every hour. She stopped flinching when someone mentioned weddings. Then Everett appeared. It was a bright Saturday afternoon when his black car stopped outside my house. I was in the front yard fixing the garden gate when he stepped out wearing sunglasses and a smile that did not reach his eyes. Maricel froze on the porch behind me. I could feel her fear before I saw it. Everett spoke politely at first, saying he wanted to talk, saying everyone was worried, saying she had misunderstood things. But beneath every smooth word was ownership. He did not ask if she was okay. He asked when she was coming back. Maricel's hands shook, but she did not hide behind me. She came down the porch steps into the sunlight and told him she was not returning. Her voice cracked, but it held. Everett's face changed then. The charm disappeared. He accused her of humiliating him, of hiding with a man who used to be married to her sister, of making people laugh at him. I stepped forward, but Maricel lifted one hand slightly, stopping me. She said she was done being afraid of other people's anger. That was the moment I saw her strength clearly. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just a woman standing under the afternoon sun, refusing to walk back into the cage that had been painted gold for her. Everett left after warning that her family would never forgive her. His tires scraped the road as he drove away. Maricel stood still until the car vanished, then her knees weakened. I caught her before she fell, and for one brief second she leaned against me with all the exhaustion she had been carrying. I wanted to hold her longer, but I let go gently. She looked at me as if she understood both the comfort and the restraint, and something unspoken passed between us. That evening, while the sun lowered behind the houses and filled the kitchen with amber light, Maricel said she had decided to rent a small room above the art shop. My chest tightened, but I nodded. It was the right thing. She needed a life that belonged to her, not one built inside the shadow of my rescue. Over the next few days, we moved her things. The room was small, with slanted ceilings and one window overlooking the town square, but she loved it. She placed a vase of daisies on the sill and said it was the first place that felt truly hers. Life settled into a new rhythm. She visited sometimes for lunch. I helped repair shelves at the art shop. We walked through the farmer's market on sunny mornings, careful but comfortable, both pretending not to notice how naturally our steps matched. People still whispered, but whispers lose power when you stop feeding them fear. Months passed. Maricel healed in visible ways. Her laughter became easy. Her eyes brightened. She started painting again, mostly landscapes filled with open roads and wide skies. Then one afternoon, Celine came to town. That I saw her outside the art shop before Maricel did. She looked different from the woman I had divorced. Softer around the eyes, tired in a way pride could no longer hide. Maricel went still when she saw her sister through the window. For a moment, I thought the old wound would reopen. But Celine did not come in shouting. She stood among the sunlit displays of paintbrushes and sketchbooks and asked if they could talk. That I left them alone, waiting across the street near the bakery. Through the window, I saw two sisters facing each other after years of loving badly. There were tears. There were long silences. There was a moment when Celine covered her mouth and Maricel looked away. Later, Maricel told me Celine had apologized. Not perfectly. Not magically. But honestly. She admitted she had judged because she was ashamed of her own failures, admitted she had blamed Maricel because it was easier than facing how cruel their family had become. She also apologized for the way our marriage ended, for letting others turn pain into a courtroom. That I did not know what to do with that apology at first. Forgiveness is not a door you kick open. Sometimes it is a window you unlock slowly, letting fresh air in little by little. Celine and I spoke briefly that day under the bright afternoon sky. She did not ask to return. I did not ask for explanations. We simply acknowledged that we had both been young, hurt, and unkind in ways we could never fully repair. It was not a reunion. It was a release. Near the end of summer, Maricel held her first small art show in the town community hall. Sunlight poured through the tall windows, touching every painting like a blessing. The largest piece showed an old wooden table restored until its grain shone gold. In the corner of the painting, almost hidden, was a yellow scarf draped over a chair. She titled it, "The Place I Was Not." Turned away. When I saw it, my throat tightened. Maricel stood beside me, nervous, beautiful in a simple blue dress, no ring on her finger, no fear in her posture. She thanked me for opening the door that day. I told her she had been the one brave enough to knock. She smiled, and for the first time, neither of us looked away from what had been growing between us. We did not rush it. We did not name it too soon. But we both knew that something gentle had survived the wreckage of everything that came before. If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Sometimes a single act of kindness becomes the bridge someone needs to cross from heartbreak into hope, and your support helps this message reach someone who may be standing at their own closed door today. Special request: comment. Kindness opens doors. If you believe no broken heart should be left alone. A year later, on a bright spring morning, Maricel and I stood in the garden outside my house, planting daisies near the porch where she had once arrived with a broken suitcase and nowhere to go. The suitcase was long gone. So was the fear. Celine visited sometimes now, not often, but enough for peace to feel possible. Life had not become perfect. It had become honest, and sometimes honest is better than perfect. Maricel looked at the flowers, then at the door, and said she used to think losing everything meant her story was over. I looked at the sunlight on her face and told her that sometimes losing the wrong future is how life leads us to the right one. And as the morning opened wide around us, I realized the most beautiful things in life do not always arrive dressed as blessings. Sometimes they arrive tired, trembling, carrying a damaged suitcase, whispering that they have nowhere left to go. And sometimes, if we are brave enough to open the door, we discover that we were not just giving someone shelter. We were being led home too.